Hi, and welcome to Jonny Ross Fractional CMO podcast, where we dive into the minds of marketing experts, digital pioneers, and strategic thinkers shaping the future of brand and business. We're live. We're live on YouTube. We're live on LinkedIn. We're live on Instagram. This, of course, will be turned into a podcast. So if you're listening to the podcast, thanks for joining us. It's great that we've got listeners as well. Today's guest is the incredible Peter Murphy-Lewis, founder of Strategic Pete, a company that blends PR with SEO to craft powerful online narratives for CEOs and businesses, amongst many other things. A true expert in the psychology of storytelling, Peter doesn't just help clients look good. He makes sure the first thing you see on Google is exactly what you want people to remember. Oh, and by the way, he literally lives in a zoo. We'll get into that a bit later. Peter, how are you?
Wonderful. Excited to be here, Johnny.
I'm going to go straight into things, and I want to talk about the power of perception. So ultimately, why online first impressions matter, and why is your online reputation the new first impression? So Peter, when someone Googles you or your business, what are they really looking for?
The simple answer is a little bit of social proof. They want to make sure that there's no negative mentions about you on Reddit. They want to make sure you're an existing human being, that you're not some type of AI avatar that someone made up. They want to see how long you've been in business. Is your website work? How do you present yourself? How do other people present you? It's the way that you like when you're about to go on a date with a friend of a friend, you do a little bit of research on that future date beforehand to not be surprised when you show up. It's the exact same thing. And in business and online world, you don't go on the date because you have the option to break up with that person before you ever go out without hurting anybody's feelings.
How realistic is it in terms of how much control we've got over those search results, though?
You have a lot of control over it. It takes a little bit of heavy lifting at the beginning. You have to focus on podcasts. You need to focus on how the ChatGPTs of the world understand you. You have to do some of the basics from SEO that have been around for 10 years. But you even if you're not a very, very proficient marketer, if you focus on kind of three basics around those, you'll be fine. You won't be an expert, but you'll be able to protect yourself. I have an example of somebody yesterday, a client of mine, who I had somebody reach out to me and say, "Hey, just so you know, I Googled that person because I was thinking about doing business with them, and the first thing that came up was negative talk about them on Reddit." And I said, "Hey, we can solve this. This isn't hard. You have a database of 100,000 people who engage with your emails. We're just going to direct some of them to go talk about you on Reddit now." But that's where you got to think about it.
And are the likes of platforms like Reddit becoming the platform that is the problem a lot of the time, or actually is there opportunity there as well?
I see it as the opportunity. If your team is small, right? Like if you have one entry-level marketer or one or two or three just mid-level marketers, you're probably not going to be able to conquer Reddit. But you could start on it. You can, there's information on YouTube on how to start doing it. You don't have to hire an agency. If you're bigger and you have the team, just hire an expert in Reddit to do it. But it's an opportunity, right? Like if I went on vacation in spring break about 2 weeks ago with my family, and went with another family. And on our way down to the beach in Texas, all three of us had done our research on Reddit. All three of us. Wow. And a year ago, I didn't use Reddit. I'm 44 years old. Like Reddit came into my world because Google started to put it into its SEO algorithm.
It's interesting, isn't it? That's mad. So typically, you're working with C-suite in typically turning over 5 million US or more. Any particular sectors, or is it across sector?
Mostly B2B, some enterprise, fair amount of software, but it spans from banking to zoos to AI-backed software in healthcare space. And now I'm producing documentaries for, larger companies that a creative director says, "Hey, I want to do an impact brand documentary that I could potentially get on Amazon Prime." So it's pretty broad.
Yeah, we should mention that actually you do a lot of TV work as well. Is it 2 documentaries that you're currently
I filmed
working on?
2, third one comes in May. So
Wow.
it's kind of a new world. But it comes from my TV experience. I've been in TV for 10 years, but I didn't produce those. I was just the host or
I
um,
was only the host.
like the ugly talent. So I was the talent for 10 years, and my marketing skills with my talent experience kind of turned into an opportunity where now I'm an executive producer and selling documentaries.
Wow. So going back to online reputation, are there any typical mistakes that you see in the sort of that size of business that you're working with? Other common mistakes that they're making, and any examples where perhaps they've really got a poor digital impression that's perhaps cost them an opportunity?
The first mistake that I see is not having anyone of your executive team or the face of your company, whether that's the CEO or the head of sales or head of product, not being present on LinkedIn. And then the second mistake that I see is your marketers focusing on top of funnel SEO. So, if somebody is going to search Strategic Pete, they're probably also going to search Peter Murphy Lewis. So, 2 years ago, 95% of my SEO focused was top of funnel, middle of funnel keywords, completely unrelated to Peter Murphy Lewis, even probably not very highly focused even on my own website name, right? I was trying to bring in, well, today that's a little bit different, at least in my niche where reputation and the dark funnel or the deep social where people are asking about Peter on Slack, on Discord, on Circle, on school communities, you need to think about people searching your name and LinkedIn, and then thinking about where you are on those other forums.
I want to get into psychology of this and also how that meets PR. So using storytelling psychology to influence journalists and the media, and how can businesses use psychology to get more media coverage ultimately. So what I wanted to ask you was, how do you use psychology to pitch stories to journalists that actually they might want to write about?
I'll start kind of high and then move down to some tactical examples, and feel free to interrupt at any point if I'm going off course. I think the very beginning, you need to think about a journalist as a client, and you need to think of them almost like your funnel, right? So you need to think of how is that journalist approach the world. You need to think about what are the topics that they like to write about, and then you need to think about how do they like to write about those things moving further down. So are they emotional? Are they data driven? Are they research or historical? And so that's how we approach kind of the pitches that we are preparing both for ourselves and our clients, whether that be for a podcast when I pitch to join Jonny Ross, or if it's when I'm pitching someone for my documentaries to make sure that it's getting national coverage. Now, my team first comes up with what is our client offering, or in our case, what are we offering? So I can walk you through some examples because I can be more transparent with that. So currently, there's 3 main things that I'm offering at Strategic Pete, or as Peter Murphy Lewis. Right, I'm about to publish a book, so I'm preparing pitches every week that go out to journalists about my book. I'm selling my fractional CMO services, and then I am selling these documentaries. So every single Monday, my team brings to me a page and a half pitch that's going to go out to more than 500 or 1,000 journalists, and it has to think about how do we make their job easier. What is it that they were going to cover that would make them look good to their boss and to their outlet? And then we prepare that. And oftentimes the journalists will reply back saying, great, I want to run with this. And they'll ask a couple follow-up questions, right? You can't go out and do research on 500, 1,000 journalists. But as soon as they reply and they're like, yep, I'm interested, then our team goes out and says, how does this person write? What's their last headline? What niche are they in? Are they in a right-wing newspaper? Are they in a left-wing newspaper? Are they in legacy? Are they in new media? And I'm happy to share my screen if you want me to walk you through some of those pitches, John.
Yeah, do you mind?
Yeah.
That would be really good. And just understanding, how you open that door at the beginning, because I'm hearing that once a lot of work is done after they've hooked, after you've got them, after they've turned around and said, tell me more, here's a couple of more questions. But what I'm really interested in that initial pitch, and just for clarification, you were saying that you're sending out every single Monday those 3 services. Is that not getting what's the word? Does it not all become the sort of, the same story, and is there nothing new in here? And I'm wondering how you deal with that.
We changed the focus. Yeah, so we change the focus almost every quarter. So like right here, you can see a pitch that started going out 2 days ago on Monday around the documentary. So how senior homes are fighting America's loneliness. And we pulled together articles for them. We pulled together stats that makes their job easier. And then we are pitching our documentary that helps our clients. So I mentioned, we filmed 2 of these documentaries. We're about to film the 3rd one. This is helping the healthcare space and controlling the narrative, helping out with advocacy, helping out with staffing, occupancy, and so forth. And then we get a large amount of journalists who reply, hey, I like this. Can I have a 10-minute interview with Peter? Or, hey, can you get me 2 or 3 quotes from this? And back to your question about does it get boring for the journalist, or at a point can you do an overkill? Yes. So every quarter we will adjust this. So right now, this quarter, the documentary might be around American seniors. The next quarter, it might be around staffing for caregivers. The next quarter, it might be about a focus around executives, but it's always promoting what are the 3 kind of offerings we have. Here's one where we are promoting our book. So this is the next big thing in leadership. My book is around scaling teams with creating culture and starting at the bottom with interns. So we're preparing pitches that would help a journalist talk about employment with a unique angle, which is around what we are writing a book around, which is called Interns to A Players. And this is the book, and it has each chapter. So maybe next month, it's going to be around chapter 5. Maybe the month after that, it's going to be chapter 6. And then here's the one that's closer to what I'm doing, which is a fractional CMO. So, why LinkedIn to YouTube is the next big B2B content strategy. And it walks them through lots and lots of studies that makes the job really easy for them. And this is promoting my services.
I want to talk about SEO and PR and how they work together. But one of the instant things that I was just wondering there is, are you managing to get any links out of this as well?
Tons. Absolutely tons. So like just in example, I shared a year and a half ago, I wasn't spending much energy on SEO at all for my own company. I was focusing all of my SEO energy on my clients. Well, my domain has blown up. My domain rank has blown up on strategicpete.com because of this. So I can show you a spreadsheet of 100 amazing backlinks just in the last 6 months from this project. Now we've turned this into a productized service. So anyone who reaches out and wants to taste this, but not full engagement, for $2,000, we can guarantee you 5 amazing links that are on your ICP around topics that you want to be able to own, and then we'll teach you how to repurpose that. You can do that on your own.
And how much hard work goes into that initial list of journalists? Is that a major part of this?
I think that would be the major lift if you're going to do it on your own, given that we over time have done that and also do it for ourselves. It's not a big lift for us. The biggest lift at the beginning with working with a new client who doesn't understand this is kind of two main things. One is you need to be able to have, where it's not controversial, not bold, but you need to have unique opinions that make you look interesting to a journalist. So when they quote you, it's something that when someone wants to keep reading and wants to stay on this journalist's blog article or news article and doesn't move away. So you need to think outside the box, right? Like, I work with healthcare. The amount of nursing homes and hospitals who think that they have the most amount of private rooms or they have innovative technology. Well, it's not a unique selling proposition. So we need to come up with something that's unique about you to make it interesting for the journalists. And then I would say the second thing that's hard to convince clients of at the very beginning is that you need to respond quickly. So if they respond to this, my team is going to be back within 30 minutes. If they need to talk to me, they know that they can interrupt me. If the journalist wants to take a new article, there's nothing more important in my day, or this is the only thing that my team always can interrupt me on, unless I'm on a podcast.
That's
No worries,
right now.
Johnny. No one's going to interrupt you for a PR pitch today.
So I should mention, by the way, if you're listening, if you go into the show notes, you'll be able to get a click through to the video on YouTube or LinkedIn. You'll be able to see some of the pictures that Peter was sharing on the screen. Just sticking with the psychological triggers, are there anything specific that you sort of always include in terms of a psychological trigger or a tactic in these pitches that I think tend to get the journalist more hooked?
For me, it's the story. That's probably because that comes natural for me. I built my first company in South America when I was 27 years old off of storytelling. It was in the travel industry and then storytelling. And then I got into television. Now I tell other people's stories. Now I'm in the documentary space. I tell company stories through their employees. So I think that because that's where I'm surrounded, that's what I grew up in. My team of 15 marketers, they're storytellers. That's the easiest for me. But I have to be honest, that's because I'm not traditionally trained as a marketer nor a PR person. I just followed what works for me. There might be 5 other examples of triggers that are as good or even better.
Is there any standout PR that you've done that you're sort of really proud of? That's whether it's been the reach or the story or how it's happened. Is there any example that you can think of that's a standout piece?
I think probably 2 specific examples stand out. One was with a private equity client that I started working with them about a year and a half ago. And everything that they were doing up until that point was around lead generation. So they weren't focused on demand generation. They weren't having people think about them, Google them, start to think about their category, think about their solutions. They were waiting till the person had pain, and then they were playing the paid media world. And that was a serious challenge because we had to build out their backlinks. We had to control their online reputation. We had to build out LinkedIn. We had to pitch their team on podcasts and really build it up quickly and then move them in to the trade show world as keynote speakers and as podcast guests and podcast takeovers. That's probably my favorite big turnaround because I walked into a mess and we were able to execute that. Now, that required a lot of engagement and a serious budget, but that one is a big one. The easiest one that I think any of your listeners could say, hey, go listen to this podcast where Peter and Jonny talk about this process and build it out on your own. I think it's around the documentary. So the documentary was made initially to control the narrative, but the amount of marketing campaigns that came from that for their team to execute upon, from PR, from social media clips, from geofencing, because a lot of times these people are using this for lobbying. So people will take clips from that documentary and they'll just geofence the U.S. Capitol because they're trying to create pressure so that the U.S. congressmen and senators and senator women understand what's going on. And that was done on a bootstrap budget with tons and tons of backlinks. And that started where journalists reach out to us. So I can't say that, at Strategic Pete, you didn't reach out to me, the journalists who want to talk about me as a fractional CMO or even these PR things. Most people aren't reaching out to me, but the documentary was on a bootstrap budget, getting people to reach out to me and our clients.
That is really relatable, and I get that. A very good one indeed. You were talking about, I think you said that you were describing some of the clients having a bit of a crazy marketing, but you in the green room you're talking about how there's lots of chaos in some of the companies that you go into, some of the organizations that you go into. So they might not have sort of a CMO in place. And I know we're just slightly off tangent here in terms of the sort of SEO and PR type of thing, but in terms of the sort of organizations that you work with, why is there that chaos? What's going on there?
I think it's usually a simple mistake. I guess 2 simple mistakes. One, it's they are let marketing agencies guide their strategy. So, if you can't afford a CMO, hire a fractional one like Jonny or somebody. If Johnny's not in your niche, find the Jonny in your niche, right? So I'm not in manufacturing, so don't hire me there, whatever that is, right? But go find that person, and before you start bringing on a paid paid media agency, then you bring on someone, a LinkedIn agency, and then you bring on somebody who's doing your podcast pitching, but it's not driven by a strategy. So have somebody fractional who has the experience do it at a fraction of the cost, right? Like I always say, like, you could have Jonny or Peter's 100% of their expertise at 25% the budget or the salary of the full-time employee. I think it's new for people who don't understand that. They think everyone needs to be full-time. I think they need to open their minds up, because I'm cleaning up people's marketing mess who didn't start off with strategy. And then the second thing is, if you have, a VP of marketing, or you have a really, really smart up and coming marketing manager, that you don't actually need strategy. That person's a fast learner. They can figure it out. You're running that person off. So if you lose that marketing manager who's, working their butts off for $70,000 to $100,000 a year, which would be a fair budget for a good marketing manager in the United States, you're running that person off because you want attribution to be perfect. You don't understand marketing. You're giving them too many goals. So every single month in the monthly review, they feel like they're failing because you don't understand them. Like, slow down, and you need to keep your good marketers around. Those are the two things that I see that people could work on right away. Hire Jonny first, or treat your marketing managers well.
Thanks very much, Peter. I totally can relate to that in terms of agencies running the strategy, and that's the worst thing to see, that you've got that these big organizations are relying on a number of different agencies that aren't really talking to each other, that are quite protective, working in silos, but ultimately are writing their own strategy as well. And so, that makes a lot of sense. Let's just go back to SEO and PR. So how do a lot of people treat SEO and PR as separate, and ultimately, I think they've got to be combined. So why do you combine them?
Well, they're closely related, especially at the higher ticket industries, right? So if you're in coaching, SEO is not going to do it any longer on your own. If you're in enterprise SaaS sales, like I am a good percentage of my time, SEO is not going to do it any longer. You need to control how people are talking about you outside of the room, and that you can impact that from a PR point of view on LinkedIn, the way that you repurpose. If your client is in the YouTube world, right? Like, you're not too late. If you started today, you're still 90% ahead of all of your competitors in the YouTube world, and people are still trying to figure it out. So I think that as the amount of platforms start to blur, right? 2 years ago, Jonny and I, every single time we needed a new software or new service, we probably started out on Google. Right now, today, Jonny and I are making that decision when we go to trade shows. He and I might be in a mastermind together where there's 5 other fractional CMOs sharing, hey, check out this new customer identification tool. Check out this new podcast pitching agency. Hey, check out this coach who's going to help you with YouTube. So the dark and deep social is present more than ever beforehand. And on top of it, 2 or 3 years ago, you and I pretty much only had to think about Meta. So we were thinking about Instagram and Facebook. And now I'm 44 years old, trying to think about how am I involved in TikTok, and what's next. So now that the boundaries are blurred, SEO is less important, and PR across all of those platforms tends to be a close cousin, close sister, a brother-in-law of SEO.
And what do you think is powering visibility in AI then? So in ChatGPT, etc. Do you think there's still an element of SEO there, or do you think it's more PR?
I would say that I'm figuring that out. So, and I'm learning a lot from other marketers who already know that the client that they're helping with are highly dependent upon LLMs and AIs. Now, what I'm doing today is I'm testing things with my own brand before I offer it or roll it out or even ask my clients to do anything exploratory. So I am installing plugins and text on my website to tell AI how to read my website, but I don't have the results to know if I'm successful. I have an anecdotal example where that I know that it matters, and it even comes from your world, which is podcasts, right? So like AI is reading podcasts and AI is reading YouTube, and and even maybe faster than what Google is. So once again, this is anecdotal. So 6 months from now, I'd be like, hey, that was just a fluke. But about a couple months ago, there was a person who posted on LinkedIn, hey, I just discovered who Peter Murphy Lewis is. And I want to tell you why you should be using AI. Otherwise, you'll miss out on the opportunity to follow this great kind of content creator, documentarian. And she shared the example. She went to ChatGPT and she said, I need you to help me find this guy who was on a podcast about healthcare. I think it was on the podcast, Becker's Healthcare Podcast, and he's doing documentaries in the healthcare space. I think it was in the last 6 months. And AI found me for that person, gave the name of the podcast, and then she went on LinkedIn. Now, I don't know how to build that into a process that I could either share or teach, but I'm working on it. So I think that's probably the key, kind of going back to your question. What are the people making mistakes, or why do they need fractionals sometimes? I think sometimes you need to allow fractionals to explore things to be ahead of the tide. And a fractional like you and I, we also need to be comfortable saying, I don't know, I'm going to put 10% of my energy into this or 20% of my energy to this. And within a month, I'll know how successful we are. And that's where I am right now with the AI world, and determine how I can position people's PR and SEO there. Maybe are you further along than me?
No, I think similar, and I think I love the idea that, like me, it sounds that you sort of test and try things on before. I like shiny new things. If there's a new app, a new piece of tech, I can't wait to try it and test it and see if it works, and then roll it out to not just my own brand, but to clients as well. So it sounds like we're on a similar page there. What you did get me thinking though, in terms of SEO and search engine optimization, is that I still think the basics apply for AI. So that's about structuring the data so that AI can understand it completely and read it and really understand the context, etc. But also having those other data points to be able to join the dots and dare I say, those backlinks to understand what's connected to what and why, and producing more context around things, to then take someone's question like they did in your case and be able to interpret that very quickly and then find the answer very quickly. So I think the basics of SEO apply very strongly for appearing reach in AI is what I think.
I agree with you, and I can even see it in my own behavior as a customer or client. So I'm about to launch another podcast, actually 2 podcasts, one in English and one in Spanish in the next month. And all I did was have a person on my team use AI to go find, the top 10. I want to make sure that they were doing videos similar to you. I want to make sure that they were across several platforms, and then use AI to find their case studies, use AI to see how successful they were on their own podcast. So how many subscribers, the best YouTube. And we did that, and we're no longer using Google. He put it into a spreadsheet and he brought it back to me. He did a little bit of human element on top of that. He went and found their pricing. He reached out to them, sent an email, how fast they reply, because that's kind of going back to the very first question you asked me. How are people Googling you? We want to see if you're professional as well. Like, you'll answer quickly when you sell. If you don't answer quickly when I want to buy something from you, do you think you're going to answer quickly when I have a problem? Because there's a little bit of human qualification checking there, vetting.
Yeah. And the deep research that you can do in these tools is just mental. Let's move on to some strategic tips for CEOs and founders, how to proactively shape their online narrative. How can CEOs manage their personal brand and search results? Is there what's the number one piece of advice for CEOs looking to clean up or improve their search presence?
I would start off thinking about one channel. I think the easiest channel is to start off with is LinkedIn, and I like to start off thinking of a circle. So I think of who is the core person that I can help as an employee, as a fractional, as a salesperson. I think about how do I help that person? And then around that, I think of who are the decision makers that would help, I would be able to help if I were solving that problem. And then I do a third core around that. So I think just like a target, just like a bow and arrow target, I think of what are the adjacent topics where I can help people out with that I'm not selling them anything. So what are all the things that I can give away for free that I'm not selling? And that is where I start my personal brand from a PR point of view for journalists, for an SEO point of view for AI and my website. And that's where I start with LinkedIn. And I know that this is very actionable and you can start off on it right away without hiring a marketer. And the example that I always say is, if Jonny and I went to a trade show tomorrow, we went to an SEO trade show, or we went to a podcast trade show, or whatever it was, and we went out into the hallway and we met you, what is one or two things that you could help me and Jonny with without selling us anything? That's where you should start creating your content. So maybe, hey, you're really good at something around contracts, or you're really good at outsourcing, development to the Philippines, or you're really good at finding a VA in Colombia. Start thinking of the things that you're not selling that you can help Jonny and I out on. And that's where I would start. And obviously the marketing team underneath you has to be smarter, thinking about SEO and YouTube and so forth. But if you're not a marketer, that's where you start.
I love that. Very, very, very good advice. If you are listening or watching right now, that's very good advice indeed. We've not talked about the zoo. We need to talk about the zoo. Peter, do you actually live in a zoo?
I do. I'm in a zoo right now. There are cheetahs that are 50 meters to my left. There are zebras that are 20 meters to my right. My wife and I and my 8-year-old have lived inside of a zoo for 5 years. There's only one other family who lives inside the zoo. They're the founders and owners of the zoo. And it's a really cool place. They had me come in as a fractional chief strategist about 5 years ago and gave me a house for about 6 months. And I've now moved back to a consulting role, and they've never taken the house away from me. It's living in a zoo is, as you can imagine, if you have an 8-year-old, there's nothing better.
I mean, I don't know if there are any zoos listening right now, but you offer zoo marketing, do you not?
I do. I've worked with 4 zoos in the last 5 years. So we help them from strategy all the way down to funnels and PR and SEO.
I am jealous. I mean, nature and animals, you can't beat that, I don't think. I'm guessing waking up in the morning and hearing all the animal noises must be quite cool. Although, does it get a bit tedious or?
No, it's amazing. I ask my wife when there's good weather out, anything above 10 degrees, 5 degrees, I'll ask my wife on Fridays, can I sleep outside in the hammock? And you can hear the lions when you go to sleep.
That's brilliant. Any favorite business books, Peter?
Oh, most people won't call this a business book. I do. The 5 Languages of Love. So I've read the 5 Languages of Love more than any other book in my life. I've gifted it to more than any other book that I've gifted. And I try to determine what is the way that people want to be appreciated when I work with them. So that whether that be an intern, my right-hand woman, my project manager, or my clients. So I try to figure out how it is that they expect me to make them feel important. And I use that in work. So you just replace the word love, 5 languages of love, with 5 languages of appreciation, or 5 languages of how I make you feel important. And that's my favorite business book. More business book would be EOS Traction. I ask every single one of my clients to read that and E-Myth Revisited, so I can remove CEOs from the process.
I love E-Myth Revisited. Yeah, that would be my answer. Any particular app or piece of tech that you're using that's sort of perhaps not well known right now, that's sort of up and coming, that you're playing with, that you think this has got some legs?
Oh yeah, I've got a couple. So I'm playing around now with usemotion.com. I'm playing around with Concierge AI, which can read through all of your different apps. So it can read through your Slack and your calendar and your email, and you can ask it questions and it pulls everything together. Playing around with Typing Mind, Cursor AI, and then one of my favorite communities in the AI world is copyclub.ai. I pay a monthly membership and go to these awesome meetings where people teach me what they digest all of the AI things that I don't have time for, and then they tell me which of the ones I should be using, which the examples I just gave you came from most of them.
Well, we will put all of those in the show notes, some that I've not heard of as well, and some sound very exciting. So thank you very much for that. Where do people find you? The strategicpete.com. I'm assuming LinkedIn. Where do you want people to go if they fancy reaching out?
It's LinkedIn. Every single one of my prospects and every single one of my clients comes in. When they come in warm, they say, hey, I've been following you on LinkedIn for 10 days or for a month or for 2 months. I like the way that you approach problems. You're honest, you're funny, you're sincere, you talk about nuances. So it's LinkedIn. I post every single day, 7 days a week. So just connect with me.
You've also got a book. When have you actually published it yet, or?
No, we have some publishers who are interested in it. So we were going to self-publish in December, and we're negotiating some contracts with some publishers. But I would expect that it'll be out by June 1st.
Well, keep an eye on that if you are watching or listening. Peter Murphy-Lewis, that has been absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. Lots of actionable insights and really got to the bottom of how the psychology behind PR and SEO. Very helpful indeed. Peter, thanks so much for joining. And thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. This has been Jonny Ross, Fractional CMO. Peter, I will speak to you soon. Look after yourself. Peace out. Take care.
Peace out.